All right, all right, all right. Okay, what up, guys? How's everybody doing today? Doing good? Okay. Well, first off, I wanted to welcome everybody to Bangkok. I know Phil is the hype man extraordinaire, but after a 3-year hiatus, it is really, really good to be back. There's like a huge energy in the air, so I want you guys to embrace that today. And yeah, let's get started. So who am I? My name is Martin. I'm the COO of VirtualAd. We're a performance marketing agency. We specialize in customer acquisition for e-commerce and high-ticket offers. Basically, our customer acquisition consists of paid media, everything from Meta, Google Search, Performance Max, YouTube, TikTok, all of your main paid media traffic driving channels. Myself personally, I've been in the agency space for over 10 years throughout a number of different roles like account management, sales, media buying, operations, and leadership. And I love being an agency operator, but what I'm truly passionate about is finding strategic breakthroughs that result in a huge revenue impact for businesses. So now I'm also excited to be in Muay Thai because, I'm excited to be in Bangkok because I've practiced Muay Thai for a number of years, and I had the opportunity to connect with an old instructor who lives in Bangkok now and participated in a social initiative to bring Muay Thai programs to underserved communities. So that was really great. And it got me thinking a little bit. So if you're not familiar with Muay Thai, it's also called the art of 8 limbs. And it's the national sport of Thailand, and it's a little different from boxing where you traditionally just use your hands. In Muay Thai, you use your shins, knees, elbows, and hands to defeat your opponent. So you're probably wondering at this point, like, what does this have to do with ads? And it got me thinking a little bit about how traffic driving has changed. And really, back in the day, it used to be about how well can I run Facebook ads, which served a lot of us really, really well. But it also came at the expense of things like business scale, business security, and ultimately profit. And so realistically, if you want to be a long-term, sustainable, sellable, viable business, you want to turn yourself into a multi-channel threat with all the tactical tools in your tool belt. So today, what we're going to be talking about is how to diversify your marketing mix for increased sales and business security. And so this is something that we've been hearing a lot on the sales calls that we're on. So we thought it'd be a relevant topic to talk about today. And to be honest, it's not just for people that are moving off of Facebook ads onto something else. You could just be running ads on the main channel like TikTok or YouTube. And I'm assuming if you're in the room here today, you've probably had some decent amount of success growing your business. You might be an agency owner that's specialized in one particular channel. You could be an affiliate or an e-commerce store owner that's having success scaling up your business, but you're looking to take things to the next level. So if that's the case, a couple of these things might sound familiar to you. All of my customers are coming from one channel. My core channel has recently stopped converting as well as it used to. Or maybe things are actually going really, really well for you, but you're trying to increase your volume and your scale. And I guess the thing that we're also hearing the most about in the industry is that, you've probably all heard it before as well because it happens all the time. Ad performance is declining. Ad platforms are getting more expensive as competition is rising. Target audiences are shrinking because there's just less data available. So what we're going to do today is we're going to talk about solutions to these problems in the context of multi-channel funnels. So in the next 25 minutes, you're going to be able to recognize the conditions for diversification. You're going to be able to balance your variable platform costs, find out about the risks associated with a singular channel approach, and how to expand your funnel for depth and reach. So before we get into all that, I want to set the context a little bit around the impact of iOS 14 and how we kind of got here. So in a pre-iOS world, Facebook was one of these dominant channels for marketers, and it's because it had like a very cheap amount of traffic. It had less advertising competition. The reporting was almost real time, and ultimately it was like a really extremely profitable and reliable channel. But iOS kind of disrupted all of that, so we started to see things like loss of reporting segmentation, limited optimization events, 90% of users opting out of tracking, delayed conversion data, costs increasing, and delayed optimization windows, all of which kind of contributed to a general air of disruption and chaos. So thanks a lot, Tim, for messing that up for us. But at the same time, it also gave business owners an opportunity to take a step back and evaluate their businesses. And one of the questions that we were frequently asking ourselves was, what was the true nature of this disruption? Was it that iOS 14 kind of messed up the rules around tracking? Or was the true nature of the disruption the fact that we were so dependent on one channel for our customer acquisition? And the truth is that it's a little bit of a combination of both, but that type of thinking helped us to recognize the opportunity in this situation. And like any good marketer, you never want to let a good crisis go to waste. And so we thought about what were some of the opportunities in this situation. And the truth is that iOS 14 kind of leveled the playing field in terms of cost and performance. So now it made the opportunity to run multi-channel funnels a lot more plausible in terms of the strategy. But I find that a lot of the businesses that we talk to, if you've been pretty successful on one channel, they're kind of hesitant to start expanding because it introduces a little bit of risk into the business. And I'd say the decision to expand your channels is easier to do when you're not doing well because you need to try something different. But if things are going really well and you got this formula perfected where $1 in equals $5 out, there's a bigger opportunity cost to that. But ultimately, we always encourage people to think about what's the long-term viability of your business and how can you make sure that you're reducing the risk in your business currently. So with that in mind, wanted to talk about a framework for thinking about these multi-channel opportunities. And first off, we wanted to explore what are some of the strategic vulnerabilities when you're dependent on one channel or you have one really dominant channel. First vulnerability is your risk and reliance. Second is that you're limited to the platform capabilities of that particular platform that you're using. And the third is you might experience a performance plateau as a result of audience saturation. So let's look at risk and reliance in a little bit more detail. And I'm kind of curious in the crowd today, how many of you are or know someone or are currently dependent on one paid media channel for your revenue currently? Okay, yeah, I see a couple hands going up. Okay, great. And I also think that this is like still relevant if you have a multi-channel approach, because what often happens is you'll still have one really dominant channel in your marketing mix. So a lot of these risks are actually still relevant to you in a sense. And when you take that take that uni-channel approach, you're really susceptible to things like account bans. I'm sure everybody's kind of run into these issues before. Things like account bans, ad disapprovals, really long resolution times, talking like Facebook chat and support or Google chat and support, things like lagging performance, and of course, you only have one singular revenue stream. So a solution to that is when you diversify your marketing mix, you have a backup advertising channel, which is great. You benefit from more flexible content standards, so things that might not get approved on one platform will get approved on another. So we frequently find that with Facebook and YouTube, for example, where it's a little bit more flexible. Your funnel stays live as you're dealing with any type of performance issues at resolution times. You can also move your budget around to other channels. And you'll have multiple revenue streams. And at the end of the day, you'll have a lot more flexibility to fall back on your more reliable channels while you're going through any like major platform disruptions like iOS 14. So one of the second strategic vulnerabilities is being kind of limited to the capabilities of your one particular platform that you're relying on. And all of the platforms have their own particular advantages when it comes to things like ad targeting, ad formats, and placements. But ultimately, you want to be able to engage your customers on all their different points of the customer journey. And the other thing that we're finding is also there's a lot of audience fragmentation now in terms of usership around different platforms. So it's much more common to see somebody that's maybe only on TikTok, or they're maybe only on Facebook and Instagram, or they're just really much more favoring a particular platform. And so when you take a multi-channel approach, there's two things that you benefit from. One is that you can engage your current customers across a number of different channels, but then you also have access to these new platforms and new audiences, whether you're going to be able to engage your new audiences. So we can look at this in a little bit more detail. So some of the major differentiators for ad platforms are things like their ad targeting, their format, the ad formats, optimizations, placements, and ultimately reporting. And we're just going to look at targeting and ad formats right now. We're not going to go through each one of these, but it's just an example to show you about how you can think about rolling out different types of platforms. And ultimately, you can use this type of thinking to look at what is the gap in my customer journey. So let's say, for example, you wanted to enhance your top of funnel with some creator content because you see that you want some more social proof for your products. You can kind of look at, narrow down which platforms are appropriate for that. But conversely, let's say that your top of funnel is working really well, and you want to take advantage of some more high intent search volume to convert bottom of funnel buyers. So you can start to look at what type of platforms offer things like search ads. All right, and then, so the third strategic vulnerability that we're finding is that you can be susceptible to what we would call a performance plateau. And the solution to this is adding new channels for additional scale. And so what do I mean when I talk about performance plateau? I'm not just talking about like your everyday run-of-the-mill performance issues. It's really something that we refer to as the law of diminishing returns, which is when you've exhausted an audience or audiences to the point where they're no longer providing you with a positive outcome or cost-effective outcome. So just as an illustrative example of this, it's really when you've reached that point of audience saturation where you've burned through all of your really high intent, medium intent buyers, and now you're at the stage where you're converting these lower intent buyers and you're paying a premium to be able to convert those. And so this really is a situation where it's much more common to run into this if you're running things like a niche offer or working in a specific industry, and also within a geo, because those audiences become naturally constrained. So you're going to run into this a lot more often if you have a really large budget, for example. And ultimately, there are a lot of in-platform optimizations you can do to prevent audience saturation, but it also doesn't address the fact that every market has a limited pool of total eligible buyers, right? And so if you've been successfully scaling in a particular niche, there is a chance that you're going to start running into this more and more because you're consistently burning up those high and medium intent buyers. So wanted to put together just an illustrative example of the benefit of adding new channels to your marketing mix. So this is something that's based on work with one of our clients. I kind of simplify this for the purposes of today's presentation. But let's say you're running meta ads at $150K per month in a particular niche, in a geo for your offer. And you start off in January, you're doing $150K in ad spend, kind of like just a realistic 3.0 ROAS, nothing too crazy here. And ultimately, what you're doing is every month with $150K, you got enough budget to pass through and acquire those high and medium intent buyers. But over time, you're going to start paying a premium anything above $150K. So you feel stuck, right? And so let's say you roll out a new channel. I have Google Ads here, but it could be any channel that's right for your business in particular. You roll it out in May, let's say at a 7K ad budget, and you can see the automatic impact on the top of line revenue to about 27K. And as you start to scale out that channel, you'll see the ultimate top line revenue impact is about 750K is a way that you've increased your purchase volume. So adding these new channels is a great way to increase your purchase volume for scale. So all this stuff, I know it's really great in theory, but does it work in real life? So we wanted to walk you through a case study that we have of a client that we had worked with, because it's always good to know, does this stuff actually work? So one of our clients is a TV celebrity in the real estate coaching and consulting space. Him and his business partner run a real estate coaching and consulting business. And they have a highly monetized value ladder where basically they attract people with a free webinar, which then escalates to workshop purchase, to coaching sessions and masterminds. And ultimately, their key marketing metric of success is cost per lead. And so post iOS 14, they experienced some pretty significant increases in their in their ads business. So they had a 68% increase in CPMs, 112% increase in their Facebook cost per lead. So it's a pretty significant business impact for them, and they really, something needed to be done about this. And so as we started to analyze the situation, we realized that 91% of their traffic was coming from Facebook, which introduced a pretty significant amount of risk into their business. And one of the things that poured fuel onto the fire was they were also having some issues in terms of ad disapprovals, like page bans, and as well as like a low account quality score. So it just enhanced the risk. It's like pouring fuel onto a fire, essentially. And the other thing also that we realized is as a result of iOS 14, their target audience size has kind of shrunk, so we were reaching that point of diminishing returns much quicker. So naturally, we wanted to diversify the traffic mix, and we were able to reduce the reliance on Facebook by 34%. Now, it's still the majority traffic driving channel, but the main difference is that this is actually by choice rather than being forced into doing it. So if Meta actually just went into full metaverse mode tomorrow and abandoned all social media, this business would still survive because they have other channels that are providing them with high quality, low cost leads. So the second issue that we wanted to solve for this customer was the customer journey. So they were just relying on Facebook prospecting and retargeting campaigns, essentially. And there was a couple of significant audience changes that had happened as a result of iOS 14. So there was just target audiences that were shrinking in general. There was a reduction in interest audiences in the Facebook ad platform. And the third part is we also had to roll out the special ads category, which reduced the targeting options as well. So there were some significant audience impacts. And as we rolled out these additional channels, you start to see the robustness of the different type of campaigns and channels that we're able to roll out to engage different audiences. So it really added a significant amount of benefit to customer engagement. And ultimately, the biggest thing is what is the performance impact on in this situation. So the number one performance issue that we wanted to solve was the limitation on scale. So when we rolled out these new channels, specifically looking for volume, we were able to drive a 38% increase in registrations. When we had the second performance issue that we were looking to deal with was increased Facebook costs. So how do we lower costs on Facebook? So there were some in-platform optimizations that we did as well. But as a result of being able to scale across these multiple channels, what we did is it took the pressure off of Facebook driving all of the registrations on a monthly basis. And so we were able to hit that sweet spot of high intent buyers on a weekly basis. And as a result, we used the other channels to fill the top of funnel, which decreased the cost per lead on Facebook by 52%. And then when we look at the overall cost per lead increase, we wanted to make sure that even though we were adding these new channels, we didn't drive up the cost per lead as well. So as a result, what we were able to do is we were rolling out these low-cost upper funnel channels that reduced their overall CPL by 24%. So in this case, rolling out multiple channels was highly beneficial for this customer in terms of driving registrations, but also decreasing their cost per lead. So I wanted to also leave you guys with a couple of tips for diversification. So as you're looking to potentially add new channels to your business as well, I wanted to leave you with a couple of things to think about. So the first is identify when to diversify your channel mix. The second is rolling out your tracking and cross-channel attribution. And the third part, which was really interesting for us throughout this experience, was looking at the difference between cost per lead and then also the conversion rate into purchases. So diversify, know what to look for. So diversification is a pretty big undertaking, so I wouldn't say this is the first thing you should go to when you see performance issues. It's something that you want to go to once you start seeing this law of diminishing returns and audience saturation. That's really when you want to start to look at this as a solution. So one of the things that you want to do is make sure that you've exhausted all of your potential audience strategies. And as you're scaling, the whole intention is obviously to reach more people. So you want to make sure that you've done things like run broad campaigns across your different types you've run broad campaigns. You've also been able to use your lookalikes everywhere from 1 to 10% lookalikes. You've done some interest in audience stacking. Another good strategy to implement is also your bidding strategy. So as you're scaling out, you got to make sure that you try things like cost cap and bid cap, which are a great way to control costs as you're scaling. But the one limitation is that they also tend to lower purchase volume. So while they keep a good throttle on your prices as you're scaling, you're gonna start to lose out on some of the purchase volume, unfortunately. And then in terms of like overall key metrics that you want to observe, some things that you'll notice that are evidence of audience saturation is things like your CPM increasing, your cost per result is increasing overall, and your click-through rate is decreasing. So these are some like more upper funnel metrics that you can start to observe over time as key indicators of audience saturation. And Facebook also has some really handy-dandy tools that you can use to look at this as evidence. So we like to use the Facebook Ad Set Inspect tool, which really gives you the opportunity to explore the relationship between things like ad spend, cost per result, number of results, and first-time impression ratio. So you can see in this particular example where the number of leads is actually like decreasing over time, but the amount spent is increasing, which is indicative of the fact that now cost per result is going to go up. Another helpful tool as well is the Facebook ad frequency tool. So this helps for you to recognize the relationship between how frequency is also driving costs over time. And I think most of us will know that the standard is that more frequency tends to increase cost per result. And this one I really like, which is the audience saturation tool. And this establishes the relationship between your cost per result as well as your first-time impression ratio. And for those of you not familiar with that, first-time impression ratio is how many times people are seeing your ad for the first time. So if you have 100% first-time impression ratio, that means 100% of your audience is seeing that ad for the first time. But as you start to penetrate your audiences more and more, that first-time impression ratio is going to decrease. And ad platforms have a tendency to show your ads to the people likeliest to convert at the beginning of your campaigns. So over time, as that first-time impression ratio decreases, what you're doing is you're showing your ads to people that are less likely to convert, and it's like putting more effort into convincing them to either buy your product or convert. And as a result, driving that type of impression volume, your costs tend to increase. So it's good to take a look at this and understand how that's impacting your overall costs. And then also, as you're going to be rolling out new channels, tracking is a really important component of this. So you want to make sure that you're setting up your cross-channel tracking and attribution. And one of the big impacts of iOS 14 was that it made in-audience, so in-platform results reporting much less accurate, and results tend to go underreported. So you want to make sure that you have a third-party platform that you're able to rely on that give you a really objective look at your marketing efforts and results. There's a ton of them out there. I'd say choose the one that's best for your business. But once you make that selection, you should also consider what type of attribution model that you want to be using. So, and the purpose of the attribution model is for you to give credit to different ad platforms that are contributing to the purchase journey. So if you're just using one channel, you're likely on a last click attribution model, which is giving 100% of credit to the ad platform that had the last click in that interaction. But if you roll out multiple channels that you're using, let's say you're using like 4 to 5, it's up to you to really decide how much credit do I want to give an ad platform that had the first interaction versus the one that had that final conversion. And you can evenly split them out in things like a linear attribution model, for example, which gives even credit to every touch point, or you can have ones that have like 100, well, like not 100%, but a much greater percentage to the first one, for example. So it's really like business dependent, but a strong consideration for you. And the last thing I wanted to speak to just in terms of lead generation specifically. So one of the major challenges in the lead generation space is that the sales cycle is actually quite long, right? So the lead comes in and maybe they convert into a sale. In some instances, it can take days. Some instances, it can take weeks. So a big challenge is how do I, track and how do I make sure you can connect your conversion channel to that actual purchase? So a lot of businesses have that challenge. But if you can set up your tracking in a way that enables you to connect that purchase with your original traffic channel, it's going to give you a ton of insight in terms of how that channel is impacting purchases. So in this particular example, you can see like the cost per lead for Google is insane. It's like $79, so much higher than the other ones. And if you're just looking at it on a cost per leads basis, you say like, we got to cut this channel. This is insane. Like, why are we still using this? But at the same time, it actually contributed to purchases at a 15% conversion rate. So if we were just to cut that channel out, then it would have a downstream impact on purchases. So if you can make that connection in your tracking, it's going to be huge for your business, and it also great for justifying adding these new types of channels to your marketing mix. Okay, so I'm hoping with these insights, these tips, you guys are now well on your way to becoming lean, mean, multi-channel machines. That's a wrap for me. Hope you guys are going to have a good time at the rest of the conference. If any of you have any questions and want to talk a little bit more detail about rolling out more channels into your funnel, you can catch me at the Facebook ads panel later today or at any of the networking mixes. And looking forward to talking with you guys at the rest of the conference. Have an awesome day. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you.